Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olson.
And we had a devil child. Devil child got glowing eyes. The pointed finger and farewell. Devil child got soul to buy. My baby had a devil child. She got horns on her head and a head on fire. Demon seed at night, breed a wish of his eye. A dead shot of guns, blood, a favorite drink. A charge to the devil's card. Devil child got going.
And good evening, and welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me, as always,
Eric Olson.
Hey, Eric, man. Wow, we got a great show tonight on tap. We have, the show is just a global phenomena right now. And that, of course, is Stranger Things. And our guest tonight, really, he went above and beyond to write the companion piece to that. And that's Guy Adams, of course, coming on the show top of the hour. But he wrote the definitive, unofficial companion piece to Stranger Things. Now, you're not going to miss that. If you're a big fan of Stranger Things, kind of want to hear about the inner workings of the show, we kind of talk about a lot of things, I'm going to imagine. I think we're going to be completely honest, above board, it's a pre-record, folks, so if you have emails or call-ins, like you so often have emails for the guest, unfortunately, this one is a pre-record, mainly because Guy lives in Spain, so we did that earlier today, and you're really going to enjoy this episode, because we kind of go all over the board with 80s pop culture, and I love talking about it.
And horror. And
yes,
he is a huge horror buff. He loves Hammer horror. He loves 80s horror. Yeah, you're right. We really get into a lot of pretty cool stuff. It was fun. He's a cool guy. He's an English guy who lives in Spain, and he is a really prolific author, mostly fiction and comic work, but he does some nonfiction, especially TV-type guides to TV shows, especially British shows. He's done Doctor Who. He's done Life on Mars. And now he has done Stranger Things.
Yeah, so it's going to be a great episode going on here. You're not going to want to miss it because, as we all know, October 27th is indeed when the new episode of Stranger Things Season 2 hits Netflix. And everyone's waiting for that. And in the meantime, buy his book and you can kind of get your fix now until you wait for the new season to kick off.
Absolutely.
You know, I was, actually, it's funny because we were talking about 80s horror, and I got the demo now in email form, and I downloaded it for the new Friday the 13th game. And it allows you to play as Jason Voorhees some of the time. It's about quarter way through the game. It's just a demo. The problem with the game, man, is, I love the source material because it doesn't get any better, and how well does it fit with what we were talking about earlier. But it's so glitchy and just so it was done on a Kickstarter campaign, so it's not exactly up to par of your normal games that you might go get at a big box store that's nice and packaged and by by a Capcom or some big publishing house. But man, the glitches are so horrible it's almost unplayable. But if you're a diehard fan of Friday the 13th and you want to slap down $40 for what I would consider a beta at this point game, and you're that rabid of a fan where you want to experience being Jason and killing people in all his glory, check out Friday the 13th, the game. So it should be good. I'm only about quarter way through my demo. I will maybe, once it's polished, buy the whole thing just to be able to, so I can kill our listeners live with Jason, because I'm going to encourage everyone that buys it. We'll have to get together. We'll exchange gamer tags, get everyone online. Let's play maybe a little Friday the 13th together.
I don't even know what any of those words you just said mean.
Gamer tag is, okay, now I'm sure your son Alex, if he was here with us, he'd be like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and we'd be able to talk. But a gamer tag is basically your user ID on a lot of your big gaming platforms. So yes, it's just like your Skype ID. Basically same thing, except that it's your gamer tag. So mine is, because I happen to love owls, is Hooter Hunter 74.
Do you now?
I do. I do.
I did not know that about you.
No. I like those critters, and that's what I tell everybody, just to clean it up a little bit. You see,
I see.
I'm Hooter Hunter 74 because I love owls.
Hooter Hunter. Got it.
Gotcha. See, now that's who I am, and you can look me up, and we can play together if I'm ever online, which I'm going to try to make a concerted effort. Because there's been a lot of listeners going, hey, man, do you PlayStation or Xbox? Well, I do once in a while. And I will do my damnedest to get online more so we can get together and maybe play some games together. That'd be a lot of fun. And that being said, look for that. It'll be kind of like one of those invite-only, after-hours AM invite-only kind of deals. Maybe we'll all get together and we'll kill some people together. How does that sound, guys?
Wild.
It sounds like a bloody good time, if you ask me. Eric, we were, I was looking through the news, and of course I shipped you over links like I do each and every week. Unlike Greg, I did not fly to these places at moment's notice to go check out the actual story, so I have to be happy sitting in front of my computer. Greg's arms are always so tired when he gets in the studio. I don't know why, because he flies everywhere, allegedly. But,
does he?
Ancient graveyard at Most Haunted House, okay? Who would have figured there would have been a graveyard? 2 human skeletons possibly dating back to the 13th or 14th century have been found just inches under the ground at what is dubbed, maybe you know this one, Shetland's most haunted property. The find at Wind House in Yell, confirms long-held views that the dilapidated former Lair's house, gosh, that's a mouthful there for a second, which dates back to the 18th century, is a site of an old graveyard. In fact, they found the bodies in the foundation of the home. The remains were found when they were surveying, when surveyors came out, because there's a new buyer, of course, of this home, and he wants to bring it back to its former glory, but part of that whole process is to have a survey crew go out there, and an archaeological exploration needs to be done as well on any of the properties that anyone wishes to excavate to rebuild. Wow.
Naturally.
And so, of course, doing his due diligence as a new owner, they found physical signs that there was once, and is, of course, a graveyard in the foundation of this home. And, of course, over the years, it has been lore that it has been haunted by many owners in the past, claiming of ghostly activity. So I guess finding the human remains does give some credence that maybe it is truly haunted.
Well, why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on. Why not? And why not? Hey, you're already finding bodies. All right, sell tickets, dude. Sell tickets. Don't renovate, sell tickets. That's what I'm saying.
Makes sense to
me.
Well,
one of these headlines really caught my attention. Horrific moment. Shaman who said his supernatural powers would protect him in croc-infested lake is suddenly dragged beneath the water as shocked onlookers gasped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that stuff gets old, man.
Oh, yeah. The old shaman over there in Indonesia, he's like, hey, you know what? I can control these critters. Okay, this is the moment when the man claims he has supernatural powers, according to a shaman in Indonesia. He went over to the pond, basically, where they are infesting. Crocodiles are everywhere, and they're dragging people under at a pretty rapid pace. The man named Subranto died after the suspected crocodile attacked in a Kutai, Indonesia, despite his best supposed power. So the guy is over there at the side of the river. Actually, he ends up going swimming, by the way. I'll get to that. In the shocking video, he is seen swimming, right? Carefree even style, in this pond with thousands of alligators, hungry. In fact, he was looking for the body of a recently drug away a teenager. So he was hoping to find the body of the teenager. And he's saying, "Fear not, people! I can control these savage beasts." And of course, I'm paraphrasing because I'm sure it went something like, help me, I'm being drug under. But he was drug under, and then amid the chaos, as the onlookers watched, of course, it's all on video. You can watch the video if you have the stomach to do so. The crocodile does not dismember him, by the way. They actually recovered his body intact. The crocodile merely grabbed him and shook him in what they call a death roll.
Yeah.
Until he was dead. They found him later on. They found him floating at 9:40 in the p.m. So if you're a shaman and you think that you can, I don't know, not be eaten by rabid crocodiles that are starving for human flesh and you want to go swimming around, don't be surprised when you get drug under.
Yeah, that is... You hear these kinds of things, for whatever reason, pretty often it's somewhere in Africa or it's in India. This one's Indonesia, where you get people who claim to have supernatural powers of one kind or another, and they are going to use those powers to defy norms of behavior and to endanger themselves. And sadly, more often than not, they were wrong.
Yeah, they turned out to be horribly wrong, in fact. Well, anyhow, you know Gwyneth Paltrow, right?
Of course.
You love her acting, right? We love what she does on the silver screen, right? Well,
Absolutely.
She is now selling a psychic vampire repellent.
Really?
And it also banishes bad vibes, according to her.
Well, thank goodness for all of that.
I know.
About time.
Well, remember Gwyneth at one point was actually involved. I did not know this with Brad Pitt. And they broke up and they crushed all of her little hearts, it says here in the article. And we all cried because she was America's sweetheart for the longest time. Nowadays, she is the queen of unusual, they say. Health hacks. With unusual health hacks, the 44-year-old presents the world with her unique approach to wellness through her website, Goop, advocating everything from, I don't know what this is, and I don't want to know what this is, but I will say it anyway, vaginal steaming.
Well.
To health cleanses that advise you to drink nothing but goat's milk for 8 days. Wow. And she also is a big proponent of leech facials. However, Gwen's most recent product push is perhaps one of the strangest yet. Even weirder than the leech facial. I cannot believe that. And of all things, it has to do with the paranormal. Now, this elixir, if you spray it on yourself, will allegedly banish any kind of psychic vampire that may be trying to attach themselves to you. Not only does it do that, it gets rid of bad vibes and make you feel happier. You can buy this, of course, over at the Goop website for $30 American. And in honor of our brand new network in the UK, of course, that is Paranormal UK Radio, you can get that for £22 in Queen money. So that you can get that elixir and you can spray it on yourself, and evidently there are no vampires or psychic ones anyway that are going to want to be around you.
Interesting.
And no shocker
I wonder
here.
what the mechanism is.
Well, and
whereby
it says
works.
here it's a proprietary blend that has not been FDA evaluated. Of course it hasn't been FDA evaluated. Why would we think it would have?
I can't imagine why the FDA would even consider evaluating it.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure that they're into paranormal elixirs.
We know what it's made of, or any.
It does
what
not
any
say
the
it
components
doesn't. It
are?
doesn't say a word about that. It just says proprietary mixture. So that's all it would say in that one is that, hey, we're not going to tell you what it is. It's probably goat pee after she drank all the milk, or maybe it's her pee after she drank all the milk. So
Wow.
who really knows? And Gwyneth Paltrow, though, wow, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yep. Whatever she's doing is working. I'm not going to knock her on that one.
I've always liked her. You know,
Yeah.
she gets a bad rap. A lot of people don't like her. They think she's very pretentious.
Well,
You know,
having a
she
vampire spray might be considered that. You know, I'm just saying.
A bit. But, I've always enjoyed her.
I liked her in Iron Man when she played Pepper. I thought she was
Sure.
cute.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
she was in Shallow Hal, of course, long before that with Jack Black. She was great in that. So, you know, she does have the acting.
Shakespeare in Love. She won the Academy Award.
Exactly. She does have the acting chops, but does she make a fine elixir? Buy it and tell us. I'm not going to buy it, but if you're a young lady out there that wants to give it a try, because evidently it smells like fresh daffodils. So, you know,
Wow.
you may want to spray yourself up. All right, one more here. When Phil and Kim Kirchhoff purchased an old home in Northeast 1st Street in Mineral Wells 3 years ago, they had no intentions. They had intentions of restoring the more than 100-year-old white house as a fun family project. Man, I am having a hell of a time reading this stuff. I think I got to go to the eye doctor, man. But today, Kim won't even go up to the house. Phil says he won't even mow the lawn. Not even in the middle of the day. The ghosts, some adults, some children, come all out, he says, all through the day and night. It doesn't matter. Day and night, doesn't matter. In his own words, that house is wacky. In the middle of the day, when it's light outside, and same as night, pitch dark, he says, the two have never been able to live in the home because of the paranormal activity. Now, it's been dubbed the Haunted Hill House, as now called by many of the locals, and it's long been known in the neighborhood for its paranormal activity before the Kirchhoffs purchased it for an undisclosed price. That would have been good information, Phil says. I would have liked to have known that this house is potentially haunted. Not that I believe in any of that stuff. He said, we started having an estate sale to sell some stuff inside the home, Phil explains, and the neighbors are coming out in droves to tell us all about ghost stories, ghostly happening ghost stories in the home. Kirchhoff soon realized they wouldn't be able to fix this house at 501 Northeast 1st Street, not with the female ghost who allegedly hums happily in the kitchen. Okay, if she's happy, if there's I don't want to sound sexist here, but women are happy. If they're happy in their kitchens, don't mess with them. Because that's their happy place. I learned that growing up. You know what I mean, Eric, right? Right?
Oh, well, sure.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I would not say that is my wife's happy place.
No, but
it
growing
is.
up, my mother, that was her happy place doing her thing. So I'd be happy that I have a ghost humming, okay? That would not be the most off-putting thing ever. At least it's humming and not going, get out of my house, get out of my house. You know, I mean,
Exactly.
so let it hum,
Or
man.
die,
Yeah,
die.
exactly. So happily hums in the kitchen. A ghost child named Joshua allegedly talks to guests as they stay. While Phil has never been interested in the paranormal activity before, he has become an impromptu ghost hunter on the weekends. Get this, we're getting to... Wait, there's more. Okay, he works as a senior quality analyst at a computer company full-time during the week, but Phil meets paranormal investigators and other interested parties, for a whopping $200 to $250 a night. See, now, this is where I peak my little radar peaks, okay? He was smart enough to know, not believing in this activity, but he was smart enough to know to buy the haunted home and then put it up there for tourists to come in.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying the guy had ideas. Come on. Someone told him, here's the deal, Phil. If you were to rent this thing out, you could make a bundle. Okay, he tells there are stories of a few dozen people that have been scratched and other things. The classic experiences keep going on. I would not call that classic, by the way.
Not being scratched.
No, I do not want to be scratched and beat up. Yes, being hit and scratched is not necessarily, in my mind, classic. He even tells the story of one man who was pushed to the ground by some unseen force and left bruises. Phil laughs a hearty laugh, going, ha, 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 ha. And yes, thumbprints and 4 fingers he could see, but he's laughing all the way to the bank because Phil says there is no shortage of Ghostbusters that want to come into this house. So, happy ending, I guess, for Phil and his house of haunts. But, to be honest, the guy, I would have to say the guy knew what he was doing. You know what I mean? He knew there was a market, and God bless him, he exploited it. Nothing wrong with that.
It does appear that way.
No,
He may not be quite as naive as he pretends to be. This reminds me, very interesting. This just happened today. I got a press release.
You did?
I did. And right in my very own town, Aurora, Ohio.
Yeah.
There is a place called the Aurora Inn, and it has been under various ownerships, but has existed one way or another for almost 100 years.
Wow.
As an inn, there's been times when it's been shut down for a while. Now, what I did not know until today is that it is reputedly very haunted. And there's a bartender there who's been there like 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. I believe she is a she. And she has had a number of experiences with this entity right there in the Aurora
What are you
Inn.
doing on air? Get over there, man. Get over there.
I am going to go over there because they are looking. They were poking around and came across the fact that I do live in this area, and obviously they saw the paranormal connection via America's Most Haunted, After Hours AM, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and said, hey, we are looking to...
We're looking for a guy like you.
Begin tours and begin renting this out for paranormal investigation. And they're beginning all of that with a big Halloween event coming up here in October.
Wow.
So... isn't that interesting? Yet another. Here's a businessman, and it's independently owned, but they belong to a chain, I guess, or an affiliation. I guess you wouldn't call it a chain. An association, a marketing association.
Sure.
And within that, they have decided that they're not making enough money via the traditional hotel rentals and through their dining and bar. And what are they going to do? They're going to make more money by bringing in paranormal investigators. So is that a sign of the times or what?
That is definitely a sign of the time. That's cool. You're going to have to keep us updated on that. That'd be really, really cool.
I'm going to meet with them next week.
Yeah, let us know and see if we can't get some tours rocking over there and see what happens. We got to get out of here. We're going to go to break. We come back. You're America's Most Haunted Headlines. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey. Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com. Only you can prevent wildfires.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olson.
And Eric, man, it's time for America's Most Haunted Headlines. And once again, brought to you by the Shooting Star Casino. I'm going to cue up their little thing here, and here we go.
Do you like things that go bump in the night? Do you get psyched for psychics? Do you believe we are not alone? Then look into your crystal ball and see yourself at the 7th Annual Paracon, October 12th through 14th at Shooting Star Casino, Monoman. There'll be more paranormal excitement than ever before with special guests from The Walking Dead, Ghost Adventures, and much more. Shooting Star Casino. Big names, big chills. Visit starcasino.com for tickets and complete details.
There you go. Go check out their website. Get your tickets. You heard the man. All sorts of cool stuff over there at this year's Minnesota Paracon at the Shooting Star Casino, man. That being said, it is time for America's Most Haunted Headlines. And go ahead, guys, fire up your Twitter. Go head on over to AM Haunted and follow along.
Absolutely. Twitter.com/AM Haunted for all things paranormal, amazemo, spooky, and this time of year, Halloweeny.
Yes.
All right. Well, we always tell you guys, please go actually look at the Twitter feed so you can see the pictures and see what we're talking about and follow the links. The first one is absolutely no exception to that rule. Check out this amazing image of autumn awesomeness from the Italian Alps. Is that an amazing picture with the starry sky, and we have the snow-filled mountains, and then we have the just turning leaves lit by, I don't know what that is. Is it a campfire or something?
It looks pretty cool, though.
It looks amazing. It's a bluish light. I don't know what the light is, but something is illuminating from the ground, and it's reflected on a lake. It is a stunning image by Italian photographer Filippo Tedier or something like that.
Filippo, yeah. Good old
Filippo. I like that name.
Filippo.
All right, so check out that image, my friends. That is motivation to get on over to twitter.com/AM Haunted. All right. So, did you see the first movie? Did you see The Houses October Built?
Yes, I have. I was caught on Netflix. They're actually coming out with another one, really. Huh.
Houses of October.
Did you
2,
ever see
continuing the tale. Yeah, I did.
They die, so it's kind of interesting that they're going to have a sequel.
Well, Coffin Girl, I guess she became very well known. The woman who plays the young woman who gets buried in a coffin.
Ah, yes, we all remember her fondly.
Yeah, so she's back, I guess, in 2. So what it is, it's kind of an interesting concept. It's a combination of found footage, so it looks like it's real, so you think it's a documentary, and what it is these people, this group, are going to the very scariest haunted attractions in the nation, and they actually go to real haunted attractions.
Yeah.
But the movie is, in fact, scripted, and it becomes a horror movie about terrible things, actual, real, demonic, negative entity activity that takes place at these places.
So
it is not a documentary. It is actually a scripted.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Blair Witch kind of thing going on.
Yeah, kind of. Based on actual, though, haunted attractions throughout the country. So the latest promo feature is a map of all of these most frightening haunted attractions throughout the nation. They're the ones that they do visit in the film.
Very cool, man. Very cool. It was a pretty good movie. It wasn't horrible by any standards. A low budget, but it was actually pretty darn good.
Well, we will see what
original. So
part 2 looks
I'm sure
like.
it'll be hitting Netflix. I'm sure of it. So.
I would imagine it will. All right. Well, for me, because I I'm not uninterested in sci-fi, but I mean science fiction, but I'm less interested in science fiction than in paranormal, dark fantasy, horror, broadly speaking.
Yeah.
Because there's so much science fiction, it's a rabbit hole. I love science fiction that kind of crosses over and is also, kind of horror, dark fantasy. I like that crossover section there, that intersection between them. Anyway, as a result, since Sci-Fi Channel lately, the last couple of years, they've really been trying to get back into what their name says, and that is more science fiction shows versus paranormal or horror shows. Yeah. So I haven't been watching it as much, I have to admit, lately, last few years, as I had before that. There was a time when, God, every show I watched was on Sci-Fi,
Yeah, I remember those days.
But anyway, this one sounds really cool, and it's got a pretty impressive cast, and it's called Ghost Wars. And what that's about is an entire town in Alaska is overrun by paranormal forces.
Wow, kind of like a Shepherdstown.
Kind of.
In a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and Meatloaf is in it, by the way.
Oh, good old Meat. Man, he must be a fossil by now. That Meatloaf's gone bad by now. How old is Meat now?
Oh, he's
in the 80s?
No, mid to late 60s.
Sorry, I like Meatloaf. I always enjoyed his opera rock. Good stuff.
That's what it is, all right. Written by Jim Steinman.
I would do anything for love, but won't do that.
That was later. Ooh.
That was later. That was...
Bat Out of Hell is still, of course, his classic. The first one. Yeah. Anyway, so that one is pretty interesting, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And that will be debuting October 5th on Sci-Fi. Ghost Wars. Wow.
I wonder if the ghosts battle each other. I wonder if it's like ghost on ghost combat.
I think it's ghost on human combat.
Oh, okay.
Alrighty, so you can click through and see the trailer for that. Yet another motivation to actually go to twitter.com/AM. All right, this is this I found on Sci-Fi Wire. Speaking of sci-fi, they have a news site that is just that. It's all things involved media and quote-unquote real world in terms of paranormal activity and horror and science fiction and the like. So that's a pretty good site. Lots of good information that comes there. Not dissimilar to our friends at the Hauntists, say, for example, the Destination America blog. Mm-hmm. Anyway, did you know today is Stephen King's 70th birthday?
Really? Wow, I would not have guessed he's already, well, I don't want to say that old, but he's been around that long. I mean, my Lord, when you think about it, though, he's got stuff ranging all the way back to the 70s, 1970s for books. So, yeah,
yep, late
my
70s,
Lord.
That's right.
That's already 70, man. He's still putting it out there, though. He's still pumping novels out. Interesting.
40 years. He's been writing about 40 years.
Yeah, I wish I had his money, though. Huh, look at the properties he sold. Everything from
my God,
to The Shining to you name it. He sold those properties and laughed all the way to the bank is what he did. Smart man.
Well, we got the new It.
Yep,
movie.
smart businessman.
Dark Towers was just another film.
Yep.
The Mist TV series.
Yeah.
On and on and on. They're going to do an anthology series of kind of taking characters from his various books and turning it into an anthology series. So it'd be kind of like a sampler, almost like a Stephen King sampler. That's going to be coming up. It's endless.
Yeah,
and
it really
films,
is.
My God, there's dozens of them.
Yeah, there are. A lot of movies out there with his content and his stamp on it. And for someone that doesn't make movies, because he's not the maker, he sure has inspired a lot of them.
God, it's really kind of unbelievable. So anyway, Sci-Fi Wire put together a clever, interesting little 2-minute bio of his entire professional life, boiled down to 2 minutes.
That's a tall order.
2 minutes.
Wow.
So you can click through again from the Twitter feed and check that out on sci-fi.com, Sci-Fi Wire.
Oh.
All right. Another film. This one's a documentary. And it's going to premiere with our good friends down at Scarefest. I can't believe that's already next weekend.
Right?
That is hard to believe. It's only next week.
I know.
Down at Lexington, Kentucky. I was there last year.
You were. Yep.
Too busy. Too much going on. Too much madness.
Too much madness going on.
Just too much. So Scarefest will be premiering the Kane Hodder documentary called To Hell and Back.
We should get Kane on.
Story.
We should get Kane on the show again.
Sure, because isn't he also a paranormal investigator?
He is. He's Hollywood Paranormal.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so we should get Kane back on the show. I think we had him once in our early days, and we should get him back on, see what Kane's up to. And obviously he's up to making documentaries.
Well, this one's about him.
Yeah, well, the guy's all scarred up and burned up and beaten up, and that was just for his film career.
So anyway, yeah, it looks cool. Looks very cool. Looks very interesting. If you are a horror fan, you've seen him. I guess he's been in about 100 films. So think about that.
He was not the original Jason, but the most notable character
yes,
to play.
He was the best known Jason. He was also Hatchet.
Yep.
He's in a bunch of stuff. So that will be the first night. It's Thursday night, actually, on the 28th. On a week from tonight, in fact, at Scarefest in Lexington, Kentucky. Go down and check it out. It's always a fun show. Great time. Great weekend. I had a ball. Last year, sad we can't make it. All right, check this out. The time of year, we got all kinds of endless Halloweeny products. And I was trying to avoid anything pumpkin-y because, oh my.
That's everywhere.
That's everywhere, and that gets old. But check out this cool egg mold in the shape of a skull.
That is cool. I'd actually buy that. I would actually pick one of those
I might as
up.
well.
Because pumpkins are so everywhere, and everything right now is pumpkin spice this, pumpkin spice that.
Pumpkin flavor,
My Lord, I tried to buy some shaving cream and had pumpkin spice in it. All right, I've had enough. No more pumpkin spice. But this
even shaving cream. Good God.
Yeah, and I don't even eat the stuff. Come on. But evidently you could as pumpkin spice thing. But it's gotten way overboard of that. Yeah, it looks cool, man. Not often. I like the little Halloween. Sometimes what I'll do for the studio here is during Halloween, because they always got cool pictures and cool props and stuff like that. Sometimes I'll buy that stuff and keep it up in my office all year round, just to kind of give it that creepy feel.
Absolutely. Well, we have in our foyer in the front entrance to the home. The stairs that lead up to the second floor, the wall on either side of the stairs is a full 2 stories. Mm-hmm. So we use those 2 opposing walls as our art walls, because what else are you going to do with them, right?
Sure.
So just like you, my favorite spooky stuff, not everything, but my favorite spooky artwork we leave up on there all year round.
I was actually offered the other day by a listener a real human skull.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like, hey, you don't collect dolls or nothing, but would you like a real skull? No, I'm good. I don't know that you can possess human remains. I'm not sure on that. The legalities of that. But it's like, oh no,
I think it depends how old they are.
Yeah, he's a doctor. He was a big fan of the show that we did with the coroner recently in the last couple months. Yes. And he says, hey, would you like a human skull for your wall? I'm like, no, I don't want a skull on my wall. Thank you very much, but no skulls for the walls here.
I mean, what would you do? Glue it onto the wall anyway?
Well, evidently you can run a screw through it. And you can fix it to the wall. He was telling me really how you can how you display them, because it has a defect, this skull. It's got some type of bulbous growth on its skull, and that's what makes it valuable.
Ooh,
it's actually kind of one of those strange medical,
strange
oddity skulls. So I turned him down. I don't need no skulls in my walls.
You don't need those stinky skulls.
I got no skulls on my walls. No, thank you. All right, what's next?
All right, so I have mixed feelings about this. What are your thoughts on? I mean, it doesn't happen that often, but it does seem to be happening more and more when entertainment events, are held in a graveyard. Do you think that is disrespectful?
I think in some ways it is. I mean, obviously in Mexico for Day of the Dead, they actually go out and hang out all day at the cemetery and be there with their loved ones and things like that.
That's participatory.
Yeah, that. You're right. That is more participatory. This is just for basically an event for entertainment purposes. Yeah, I don't know.
Where they show movies. They'll show movies.
I just no. Now, is it amongst the gravestones, or is there a separate area for entertainment purposes?
As far as I can tell, it looks like it's really intermingled with the actual
Yeah,
graves.
I don't know that I would be a big fan of doing that, simply because it's a resting place. Yeah, I mean, that's someone's loved one.
Exactly.
That you're hanging crap on and everything else. And even to look at the picture, the guy's putting his foot up on a headstone. I think maybe a little more reverence is needed, in my opinion. And, of course, that's just my opinion. I have
mixed feelings. I certainly sympathize and empathize with your perspective. I guess it depends on the execution. Anyway, no pun intended. There is a macabre cabaret coming to a Philadelphia area graveyard cemetery called Forest Hill Cemetery. And the show is called Death is a Cabaret, Old Chum. A takeoff on the lyric from the theme song to Cabaret.
Yeah.
And so it's about an hour-long show with singers performing, singing obviously, but also acting out scenes. And it's supposedly a little bit of absolutely everything, and supposedly quite entertaining. But again, I'm not sure how I feel about taking place in the Forest Hill Cemetery.
Well,
But
obviously, someone gave him permission. Yeah, I mean, so evidently Forest Hill's okay.
They're not invading.
Yeah, evidently Forest Hill Cemetery is okay with them using their cemetery as grounds for entertainment. Life is but a stage, of course, but maybe, maybe it's a source of revenue, obviously, for them. But still, I don't know. It's kind of a slippery slope there, my friend.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I'm not really. So, I mean, it says they really do. 3 singing souls appear in the misty boneyard. Oh, they're supposed to be ghosts. I see.
Oh, okay. Well, each their own.
So, music from Bessie Smith to the Scissor Sisters.
Oh.
Cole Porter to Sonny and Cher.
Wow. Man. They really got it going there.
They do. All right. So, interesting. If you're in the Philadelphia area and that sounds amusing to you, check that out. That's coming up this very weekend, this Friday and Saturday at Forest Hill Cemetery.
But here's the deal. It's only September 21st. Aren't we pushing Halloween a little soon?
Well, I read the article, and they don't really make any particular reference to Halloween.
So it just happens to be going on. Okay, gotcha. Because even in the stores right now, it's full-blown Halloween, which always has been, don't get me wrong. But I've also seen a lot of people decorating right now for Halloween. It's like, it's just too early, people.
Oh, I have not seen anyone around here yet. We got a pretty hard, fast rule of October 1st.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Okay, what's next? I keep looking at this picture of Vampirella, and she's looking quite interesting in her.
Vampirella, yes. So it's interesting. Whenever I do put up anything about comics, usually it's just there's some huge, retrospective omnibus coming out, because I don't talk about comics that much. But when I do, my readership, my followers just don't really seem to pay a whole lot of attention to comics at all, which is really interesting and odd to me, because I wouldn't have thought that. Anyway, yes, there's the Vampirella omnibus. I guess it's like the thickness of a phone book. It's enormous.
Wow.
And it is now out from Dynamite Comics. It's like an overview of a number of Vampirella books, and she is certainly the hottest vampire of all time.
She is. Look at her in all her glory.
Most scantily clad.
She is. Well, vampires have always been very sexual throughout the ages.
And she is no exception.
No.
What's also interesting about her is she's an alien.
She's an alien vampire, so...
Yes, she's from the planet like Dracula or something.
Yes. I have not seen anything with her in it in recent times, but
she's been around a long time.
Yeah, she has been around a long time. She was part of that 1970s monster movement in comics, where they're making that big comeback in the 70s.
Yep.
You know, where Dracula had his own. Everyone had their own comic at one point, and she was one of them. By the way, just letting you know, a little history lesson.
568 pages.
Man, that's a huge comic book.
That's a
graphic novel right there. That's a big old graphic novel.
So, if you're interested in that, check it out. Follow the link to the Dynamite Comics website, or I'm sure you can pick it up wherever comics are sold.
Yes, better bookstores and some not so good bookstores everywhere, and maybe even adult bookstores,
mid-level bookstores, even aspiring bookstores.
Yeah, ones that quite haven't made it yet. You can kiosks.
All right, here's another image. Boy, I love this. I am a sucker for a starry night, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, there's a lot of stars there, man. That's a lot of stars. That's beautiful. That's
beautifully clear night, and what you're seeing up on the hill there, it looks kind of like a castle in the distance, but it's actually a monastery, and this is in Armenia. And if you click through, oh my God, this photographer's name is, I'm certainly going to mess it up, but it's Surin Manvelian, something like that, something pronounced vaguely in that ballpark.
Sure.
And he is a kind of travel photographer specializing in his home country of Armenia. And if you click through, there's an article in the Smithsonian magazine, one of our faves, and he's got a bunch of really amazing images. This just happened to be my favorite, but there are a ton of great images there. Real kind of cool, spooky, awe-inspiring landscapes and the like. So check that out.
Looks
and again,
beautiful, man.
If you want to see it for yourself, you want to see all these images, follow these links, just go to twitter.com/amhaunted. All right, another image. Have you ever seen a simultaneous triple lightning strike?
No, I have one on camera where I didn't even know I took it until I looked at the picture and there, holy crap, there's a lightning strike. But
this is an amazing
yeah, I'm looking
image.
at that. It's got triple of them.
Staggering.
That's
three of them
that is
hitting
cool.
water.
And where did
hitting
this?
The ocean.
Where was
Canary
this
Island.
Okay, that looks beautiful. That's a postcard right there, man.
It certainly is. Look at the color. Look how blue it is.
We got time for one more, by the way.
All right,
one more good one.
All right, our buds, Amy and Adam, are back. It's back on the air. Kindred Spirits. It's on TLC, and it's on Friday nights. And tomorrow night will be the second episode. They investigate the haunted home of the inventor of the electric chair.
Oh, man. Well, you know, if anyone's going to be haunted, him and Sarah Winchester, well, those two should have been haunted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have Amy and Adam coming on the show in just a few weeks.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Now, I like the show. I mean, it's kind of a departure from the normal paranormal show. It really is. It's more of a person-based show. Yeah, I mean,
it is.
More of a feel.
That's the theme. The theme is people live in the house or building. I think they've all been houses so far, where the spirit of a relative of theirs is in the house, or they think is in the house, and is causing trouble one way or another, or they're concerned. And so that's what the kindred spirit aspect is.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know, man, I hate to do this. We got to cut this a little. We're kind of crunched for time because we went a little long with Guy Adams. So we're going to cut to break. We come back. We're going to be coming back with Guy Adams. Don't go anywhere. Don't miss your fix of Stranger Things right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
America's Most Haunted, The Secrets of Famous Paranormal Places is now an epic book from Berkeley Penguin. History, legends, investigations, interviews, and profiles of America's 10 most haunted hotspots by Eric Olson and haunted housewife Teresa Archie. Be sure to join us on Twitter and Facebook at AM Haunted, Pinterest at America's Most Haunted, and our website, americas-most-haunted.com. And here every week on America's Most Haunted Radio with all the top names in the paranormal field.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. Welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me, as always,
Eric Olson.
Hey, Eric, man, we got a great guest on tap tonight, and really, it's going to be talking about a subject matter that's near and dear to our hearts. So why don't you go ahead and tell us who our guest tonight is?
Yeah, we are super, super pumped. I mean, this is a show, a TV show that really moved Netflix to a whole new level. We've been talking about some of the ramifications, including the fact that all of a sudden, for the first time, they have to start thinking about merchandising because everyone wants to buy Stranger Things stuff. And that's the first show that they've run that there was a high demand for such things. Stranger Things premiered in July 2016. Hard to believe. That long ago. Quickly becoming one of the most watched seasons of Netflix original content. This incredible show continues to dominate pop culture. From excitement over the recent Season 2 trailer to theories on what's to come. As we fans not so patiently count down to October 22nd, 7th, and Season 2. Thankfully, the wait just got a little easier with Notes from the Upside Down, an unofficial guide to Stranger Things by Guy Adams. The book is here to fill our Demogorgon-sized hole in our lives. In Notes from the Upside Down, you'll get inside the world of Stranger Things, from the origins of the creepy premise and endless child actor auditions to how the mind-bending music was composed. Author Guy Adams illustrates how the Duffer Brothers wove techniques and references from all the best thriller, horror, and paranormal entertainment into the show that's giving us a collective nosebleed. Notes from the Upside Down shares all the subtle references to media like The Twilight Zone, Knight Rider, Jaws, Carl Sagan, many, many, many more that you might have missed. And who is Guy Adams? He lives surrounded by rescue animals, having spent over 10 years working as a professional actor and comedian. Eventually, he decided he'd like to eat regularly, like a, person. So he switched careers and became a full-time writer. Against all odds, he managed to stay busy and has since written over 20 books. Welcome to the program, Guy Adams.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hey, Guy, great book, by the way, Notes from the Upside Down. Is actually pretty darn cool. I kind of looked at it kind of like the special features addendum to the show that we did not get. That gives you the behind the veil look at what's going on with Stranger Things. Now, what made you want to write the book? I mean, what did you... I guess maybe I should back up and say, with Stranger Things, it must be right down your alley and moved you to the point where you want to write a book.
Well, sort of. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the publishing's a funny old thing. So I was actually approached by the publisher and asked if I wanted to write the book, which makes the decision ever so easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
So I mean, that's the right way around. But I mean, they approached me because they knew my tastes would make me probably a good fit for something like this because, I mean, I love the show, but I'm very well steeped in the kind of stuff that the Duffer Brothers were riffing off. Mm-hmm. And so, whereas normally being able to talk endlessly about Toby Hooper, bless him, miss him, might not endear you at social functions or indeed just passing by a publisher's desk. All of a sudden, I become of worth because they kind of knew that I was someone that maybe would have the kind of background and have the interest and the voice that would be useful to approach something like this. So they got in touch with me and said, "Is this something that would interest you?" And it was not a very long and difficult conversation. The answer was yes.
Didn't take too much prodding for you to want to start that project.
No, not at all.
Hey, I was going to say, I love your website, by the way. The title says, "What is a Guy Adams?" That's kind of funny. I like that.
Well, it's a question and a half, isn't it? I've never been able to answer it. So, it's one of those things. I find websites difficult. If I'm perfectly honest with you, for a start, I'm writing too much to ever update a website. And also I'm English, and English people really don't like talking about themselves all that much. And so the whole idea of having a website that's designed entirely to go, here I am, it's me, aren't I amazing? It's just really not how English people are made. And so, having a website, being English, means you automatically have to apologise.
Yeah, well, I'm also...
so there's an element of that.
Yeah, I'm English descent. I'm a Sturgis, and we're from Wales. And my great-grandmother was from the old country, and of course, England, and that's exactly how she was as well. So she would say, hey, you don't need to be out there and be all brash to get your point across. Your work will speak for itself, my son.
Which of course is absolute nonsense. It's sort of, in these days of needing to...
What a pile.
Yeah, exactly, right? Right.
It's one of those things, and every publicist that's ever existed, when I turn around and go, well, doesn't that sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet a little bit? I mean, they cry. Just a little piece of them dies inside. They think, oh, God. It's
yes, is the answer. And
yes, please blow your trumpet.
Yeah.
So, the website is entirely an act of, hello, I'm terribly sorry.
Well, tell us about your acting career. I mean, what did you act in, and before you decided to
make a perfect example of self-effacement. But my acting career was a wonderful exercise in failure. I mean, I spent a lot of time really successfully not acting. So I appreciate that really is the acting business. So I did it really well. I was even able to work in bars and be a waiter occasionally, and all those things that actors do. So I did lots of all the elements of being an actor. I did those brilliantly. I just didn't get much work. So that was the thing, really. I was mainly a tour guide on ghost tours.
Really?
Dressing up in Victorian clothes and terrifying tourists.
Well, you know what? This is a paranormal show, so you're right here at home. If you're a ghost tour guide, we're all about that kind of stuff. That's not a problem. But, getting to the book here really quick, notes from the upside down. Okay, so the publisher comes to you and they say, hey, you got to write this book for us. So how did you go about researching Stranger Things to bring in such a wonderfully written? I love the footnotes at the bottom, too, that really adds that flair of personality to it. That you don't see that a lot in books anymore, and I like that a ton because you weren't overly serious about it either. You're just enough serious to be informative, but you also kept the whole thing entertaining.
Well, I mean, to be honest, that's kind of me. But I mean, there's an introduction to the book which points out, because I mean, this was a conversation the publisher and I had quite early on. I mean, the introduction essentially riffs off the fact that we are living in an age where we don't need books about TV shows anymore. Mm-hmm. Once upon a time, you go back 15, 20 years, any successful show had a slew of books about it, unofficial, official, and everyone wanted the unofficial ones because they knew the official ones would just be lots of nice photos and everyone saying, oh, the catering was great. But the unofficial ones would be horrible and full of poison and really good gossip. But there was so much of that sort of stuff. But of course, now we have, we have the internet. We
Sure.
have just so much information out there that
Yeah.
it's kind of not necessary anymore. And I had the weirdest review about the book. Someone actually said, what was great about reading the book is it read like a kind of website in a way. Was that what you're going for? And I thought, see, that's my point right there.
Yeah.
Already, just the fact that I'm talking in about a TV show makes it look like a website.
Yeah, like a blog feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
And so,
yeah.
sorry.
I know exactly what you mean, because you're right. Back in the day, Star Trek, for instance, had book after book after book after book dedicated to it. I'm talking about the original series, which was only on for 3 seasons. Had a whole slew of books, and now whatever you want to know about the original Star Trek, you go to Google, and you say, hey, Google, what was that like? And, of course, it comes up with a website that always has that information. So you're right. It is kind of something that's really not needed, but really, gosh darn it, we're glad you did, because it was entertaining.
Yeah, I mean,
as all
the
hell.
trick was to try and come up with a way of doing a book that would sort of earn its place. So hopefully it would be informative, and yet it would know deep down in its heart that a lot of people who maybe were going to pick up the book would know a reasonable chunk, at least, of what I was saying. Hopefully not everything, because obviously there's an inherent challenge in there, isn't there? I did want to try and come up with some stuff that was, telling people things that they might not know. But at the end of the day, you wanted to create something that was, even those dyed-in-the-wool fans would be able to pick it up and actually be able to engage with it and get something out of it. Hopefully they'd learn a few things, but if they didn't necessarily learn some new facts about the show because they were so well-versed themselves, they would enjoy the discussion of the elements in that show. They would enjoy the discussion of the influences behind the show, and maybe there would be more material that they weren't familiar with, and stuff like that. So it was a case of how you could create a book that would earn its place on a shelf in a day when, as we say, TV guide books just aren't actually all that commonplace. And so the style comes from that, really.
Sure.
I mean, and they were hot on it, having, a degree of humour and not being too po-faced and serious. I mean, that's elements of that I got carried away with, that they were wanting the notion of things to make and do, the kind of puzzle side, the game side of it, which I took and I actually kind of. I mean, I don't approach those sections at all seriously. I think that maybe they expect me to approach those sections more seriously than I did. But I just wanted to create a book that would be fun, that people that love the show would respond well to, would get something out of, and would just enjoy the experience of reading.
Guy. Yeah. Let me interject here just for a moment. Always thinking in terms of the biggest possible picture, and I know it's hard to believe, and certainly it does not apply to the two of us, but there are people out there who either just kind of blew through and did the binging experience and didn't retain necessarily that much, or even people who literally, I know this is hard to believe, did not watch the series at all. There are people who don't have Netflix. So maybe it would be very helpful to give a nice little summary of the show itself, and perhaps where you see us heading, what the status is heading into season 2, and then we can go from there and dig into some of the more pithy details. Okay. But an overview would be great.
No worries. Well, I mean, the first thing I'd say, obviously, if you didn't watch the show, you're dead to me. But, okay, let's pretend that I can be polite enough to explain what it is that you've missed. See, that's the thing about English people. We're self-effacing, but we're also really rude. So Stranger Things is... It really evokes the whole kind of... storytelling of 1980s cinema and the works of Stephen King and various elements, and these are things you will have heard about. Whether you've watched the show or not, you will be looking at it thinking, oh, that's that kind of homage show. But what's clever about it is it takes all of those elements and actually makes its own thing. It's a story of a group of kids who brush against the infinite, if you like. There is a small town in which government experiments are being run, bad things are occurring. There is a sense of our universe is being breached into universes beyond, and there is a spilling out and a pollution, if you like, from that universe into ours. And in the way of all of those marvelous stories such as The Goonies and Stand By Me, we're following the kids as they realize that the world around them is becoming a stranger place, and they might have to do something to stop it. I don't really want to go into too many details because I don't want to kind of blow some of the good stuff, but it's a science fantasy show. It's not supernatural. It's rooted in alternative science and government conspiracies gone wrong. But it's a good, fun horror fantasy show that's full of heart and stirs a lot of wonderful nostalgic elements into the show, but manages on its own 2 feet.
And it resurrected my good bud Winona Ryder's, resurrected her career, man. I mean, you know.
It did.
And that's a side benefit.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, wonderfully so. She's I mean, it's full of great performances. It has to be said. It's a show that's particularly from the kids. I was talking about this with someone else recently, that it used to be very much like a thing that was just taken as read of oh god, we've got kid actors in this is going to suck, this is going to be difficult, you know, everyone squint, you know, pretend that the performance is going to be all right in a minute, just ride the children's performance through and we'll get to the adults again in a minute and we'll survive. But we are living in a time at the moment where we are surrounded with great kid actors. You know, this show is packed full of them. It really is. Particularly Millie Bob Brown, I think. I think she is simply phenomenal. An actor who acts
I would agree.
Real minimal skill, by which that needs explaining because that sounds like an insult. What I mean is it's not obvious acting. It's not big OTT acting. She is someone whose face can appear almost immobile, yet there's so much stuff going on there. It's a real skill.
Well, we just
she's phenomenal.
Yeah, we just reviewed, and Eric and I both saw it recently, and Finn Wolfhard's in that one, and of course, again, that goes around this particular It movie, circled around the kids, and of course, kids are showing that they got the acting chops to not only do a Stranger Things, and I think that Stranger Things, in a lot of ways, directly helped it get off the ground. I think the big movie studios are going, well, wait a minute. These kids have a market, and they can act, and we can do these stories that involve youth performances and really make them come off well. I want to say Stranger Things had a small hand in that, because up until then, Stranger Things was really alone, other than Stand By Me and a couple other movies. They're really in a genre of their own when it dealt with just youth actors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it helped the film get made, but I think it will help. It certainly has helped the film be a success.
Yes.
I mean, the Duffer Brothers pitched to do that movie and were rejected. But I mean, it's been in It I'm talking about now has been in development for quite some time. But certainly it couldn't have come out at a better time.
Well, no, because
I think, you know, a film that is based on a novel that is quite heavily referenced in a show that has been such a phenomenal success, featuring an actor that's in both Stranger Things and also now in the It movie. You know, I mean, it's perfect timing for that film. And I mean, clearly it's a phenomenal success. I mean, the sort of box office of the movie is huge. I haven't seen it because I'm in Spain, and to be honest, seeing films in the English language over here is a slow and painful business. I have to wait for the one movie a week that will be shown in English.
Well, don't you have Amazon, you know, so you can maybe get it when it comes out on video? You can order it up.
That's where I tend to, you know, I own all my movies. As I think the book makes clear, I own far too many movies. It's between 3,000 and 4,000 films.
Wow.
So yeah, it will get bought at some point. But I must admit, I'm excited enough that I'm really hoping to try and see it at the cinema before that as well.
Yeah. No, it's an experience. Really, it's really well acted.
You rated it? Did you? You enjoyed it?
Yeah, we gave it.
You reviewed it. Was it?
Positively. Yeah, it was about 4 stars. Is where we were both at. I mean, of course, it has its drawbacks, like any film. But overall, we both rated it very, very highly. I liked it as much as I like Mad Max film, and that's saying something. Because you know what I mean? So I kind of put them in the same ranking. About 4.5 stars. Very, very well done. The only thing that happened to me is about maybe halfway through my watch, look at the time. And that's never a good sign when I look at their watch to go, oh, when's this one wrapping up? How much longer do we have?
It's a funny thing, isn't it? We are living in an age where movies are very, very long. And it's only a couple of hours, isn't it? But I mean, for a horror movie, that's long.
Yeah, 2.5 hours. 2.5.
It's 2.5.
It is. It's right around there, the 2.5 hour mark. And it does a good job most times. I mean, suspenseful, does everything you want that kind of movie to do. Now, the Stranger Things stuff, it was really a shock to everybody, me included. I think Eric and I, when we talked about Stranger Things, when it first came out, we couldn't believe that it had become the juggernaut it had. And I think Netflix themselves were surprised what kind of hit they had in their hands, mainly because of the marketing issue they're having now. If they knew it was going to be this huge juggernaut, they already would have had lunch boxes, T-shirts, and everything ready to go. And so it's definitely surprising too.
And it is interesting how successful the show was. I mean, you can sort of look at it and you can understand why, because nostalgia is a potent thing. Mm-hmm. And as I said previously, I'm a bit sniffy about pushing the nostalgia element too much, in the sense I don't want people to misunderstand and therefore think the show is just a greatest hit stew of Stephen King and Spielberg. It is more than that. It is better than that, because it has a quality that lifts it above just being now that's what I call 80s horror mix. It's a better piece of television.
It was,
but it is a big part of it. That nostalgic appeal is a huge part of it. Sure. And what's great about the 80s at the moment is it seems you don't have to have lived through them to actually be interested.
I was just going to say that. The interest in nostalgia is always highest among those who didn't live through it. Look at Happy Days. Look at the Happy Days version of the late 50s, early 60s. Well, if you were alive and sentient at that time, that's not the way things were. The Grease version, the Happy Days version, that's not... It's a really stylized and attenuated version. And it's the same thing with the 80s. Yeah, I was there in the 80s. I'm old,
Yep.
And me too. I remember very fondly about the 80s. The 80s still is a time that I remember and think of generally very fondly. But like any other era, nostalgia, you're forgetting a lot, right? You're filtering out a lot of the stuff that's lame, and you're really latching on to that which is best, and not even exactly that, a stylized version of that which is best. And I think that's what makes nostalgia work, is it gives us, you get enough distance, and we're able to filter out the things, the day-to-day life type things, and you're able to pick up on kind of a zeitgeist, and even not necessarily the zeitgeist itself, but a version of it, a stylized version of it. And that makes it very, very appealing, because you compare that then to your workaday life now, and it's always easier to see the negative where you are right now and what you're going through day by day by day by day. Think about it. 40 years from now, 30 years from now, there will be elements of this era that look super appealing and that people think are kind of fun. That's the other thing, is the danger is kind of drained out of it. I mean, when we think about the 60s, oh my God, the Vietnam War, it was horrifying. It was incredible. Almost 60,000 Americans, not even counting everyone else, were killed. It was a source of extreme dissension and discontent and disjuncture between youth culture, the youth and those who identify with youth culture, and the quote-unquote adults. I mean, there were awful things about that era, and yet we think of it now as this magical time of peace, love,
and rock and roll.
And good stuff, Yeah,
absolutely. And as you say, the great thing about nostalgia. It's like, why? It is like anything. See, I'm a writer, and I mainly write fiction, and of course, so my job is to take reality and make it fit for what story I want to tell. For my narrative, and that's what nostalgia, as you say, does. It goes, here's the 80s, but I'm not really going to bang on about Reagan, because then that's just going to make us sad. So what I'm going to do is, here's the 80s that was just the good stuff, and I'm going to just tweak and change and move and shift. And as you say, you end up with this fantasy world of the 60s, the 80s, the 70s. It's, you know, I mean, every generation's had its second moment in the sun, and will continue to do so in cycle form as we keep resampling these past periods and putting a spin on them and making them, as you say, beautiful and wonderful and basically just packed full of John Carpenter synths and weird hair.
Yeah, well, exactly. I know a lot of like kids that have seen Stranger Things, and they talk to me about what the 1980s is like, and I'm like, it wasn't that great, trust me. It may look great in Stranger Things, but I'm telling you, it was not as cool as they're making it look.
No, 1980s, I walked around looking like an absolute dick, and, you know, life was actually fairly miserable, and it was fine, and I wasn't actually quite old enough to be able to rent all the movies that were coming out that I wanted to watch.
Exactly.
The 80s were crap.
Yeah, because I was a teenager in the 80s. I mean, I was a preteen and teen in the 80s. And I remember, like, the new Friday the 13th coming out and everything else. And, I mean, all that stuff was great. And it seems that the Duffer Brothers pretty much only latched on to the pop culture at the time. They didn't really reference any of the issues that were happening in the 80s. And that's part of the stylizing it. You know, looking at through that lens.
And it's the right move. You don't actually want to dwell too much, I think, on the politics that period, because actually they're virtually identical to the politics we have now.
Yeah. You
both in the UK and in America. So, you know,
it's a case of
not that different.
It's a case of meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
It is.
You know, same.
It's a perfect time to look back. Maybe that's why we're so nostalgic of the 80s. We look back at it and go, my God, it's so similar. It's unbelievable. But the important thing is, what we have to remember is we survived the 80s. Wonderful. Let's keep remembering. The 80s were wonderful. Why are they wonderful? Because we lived through the 80s, so we might live through these.
The best thing to happen
That's why we adore it.
Guy, the best thing to happen in the 1980s is MTV. Come on, that is the bright spot right there.
See, I'm English. MTV to me was as foreign as Oreo cookies and Hershey's syrup.
Sure.
And look, I was a huge comics fan. So everything that tasted American, Twinkies and New York and Manhattan, all of these things that I knew only from panel grids and Spider-Man swinging past them. That was just adorable to me.
Well, you know,
but
Eric,
in the UK, we had none of that. We didn't have MTV in the 80s in the UK. We took a few years before we caught on to all of that.
Well, Eric, you were around when, obviously I was too, but you remember it more vividly than I do. What was it like in the 80s, like when MTV hit? Well, what was the feeling back then?
Well, it really was a magical pop culture time. That part I don't really have any need to poo-poo or to denigrate. There was a feeling of, all right, so we went one way in the 60s, we went another way in the 70s. Let's kind of synthesize all this together and come up with something kind of fresh and new. And that, I think, is ultimately what the appeal is to pop culture, is it's not alien. It wasn't anything that we hadn't seen pieces or parts of before, but it was putting them together in a new, fresh way. And it was looking at things like fashion and looking at things like even, gender identity and whatnot. That was the first time when it was really okay that we had a whole bunch of gender fluidity, and it was moving over into kind of the mainstream, at least pop culture. And it was very interesting in that regard. People were pretty open-minded in terms of pop culture. So, I mean, there's an awful lot of people who are in a pretty wide age range who the 80s is still, that's their favorite music period. I mean, my wife is in her late 40s, so she really is kind of the sweet spot in terms of being the right age. But the 80s is by far her favorite time for music. I still love music from the 80s. And as far as TV and film, I think you still have that a similar sense where you're getting at something kind of fundamental and something refreshing and something almost sweet. You're allowing yourself to feel things a little more deeply than in the more kind of cynical 70s. The 70s was really pretty difficult because you finally, by mid-decade, you finally had the end of the Vietnam War. It was such a relief, and you had this loosening of the antipathy between generations, and people said, my God, I don't want to hate my kids, and the kids said, my God, I don't want to hate my parents. And so you had a kind of a reconciliation, and that kind of came into fruition and blossomed, I think, to a certain extent in the 80s, and that's what's reflected in pop culture. So it was a time I felt really in tune with. I was out and about beating the bushes. I started off the 80s working in TV. I was actually the U.S. correspondent for a Japanese music show. And so I was involved with TV. I did a local magazine show I was a correspondent for in Southern California. A little bit later, then I went into live performance, which really just meant I was a DJ. I was a live and mobile and club DJ. So I was really seeing things firsthand. I was kind of where the rubber met the road. I'm at all these frat parties, high school parties, on and on and on. So I was seeing how people were bringing this together. The other thing that happened in terms of reconciliation is you once again, after a really divided, shall we say, second half of the 70s, because that was the beginning, of classic rock and arena rock. You really had this very strong division between what was perceived as black and white music, and that was reconciled again kind of more like the 60s in the 80s, where you had a lot of white artists doing soul-based music. Mm-hmm. You had some kind of rocking, black artists. You had mixed bands. So there were a lot of really positive things about it, and I was seeing, all these white kids at the fraternities and high schools and even junior highs who were totally into rap. They were just, throwing themselves into it. Yeah. Today, that's just commonplace. We expect that, right? But at the time, that was really strange and unusual. So, those are some of my thoughts about the 80s, and I see a lot of that reflected in the show, in Stranger Things. A lot of it is, it's subtle, and that's one of the cool things that you did with the book, is you picked up on some of the subtleties, and maybe we should move into that. I'd love to hear, Guy, of course we don't want to give everything away.
We have to run a break, though, Eric. I hate to cut you off, man. We got to run the break. We're actually running a little bit late. We'll be right back with more Notes from the Upside Down. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If pop culture is to be believed, roughly 40% of all people are actually vampires, or dating one. Well, undead or not, you can always save on a clean, comfortable room at Motel 6, even if you sleep during the day, because direct sunlight turns you into a pile of sparkly coffee grounds. Speaking of which, we have free coffee every morning. You day sleepers may want to go for the decaf. I'm Tom Bodette, and we'll leave the light on for you. Book online at motel6.com.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olson.
And we are, of course, we're having a great discussion all about the 1980s with our guest tonight, and that's Guy Adams. And he wrote a really good companion piece with everyone's favorite Netflix series, Stranger Things, Notes from the Upside Down, an unofficial guide to Stranger Things. And when we were leaving, we had Eric over there waxing philosophical about the 1980s and how much he adored them, and he probably had hair back then, and he was loving them. And Guy, what was your perception? I know you're probably about my age.
Is that Eric was completely wrong? No. I think he completely put his finger on the point. And again, we're looking at. We talked earlier about how actually the 80s are very much reflected in our current society now, and you were talking about that sort of liberal inclusivity that happened in the 80s in pop culture and music, and I think that is something that again we're seeing now, and maybe that's why our nostalgia for the 80s taps in so potently, is that we have a culture right now that is very divided. We have a sense of there is a political cruelty in our society at the moment, which is alarming and worrying in many, many ways. And I appreciate many people who may have different political views to myself. I believe this is common, but nonetheless, you look at the 80s, and the 80s were there was an element of right-wing bigotry and unpleasantness that simmered through the 80s, and yet when you look towards the youth and you look towards the pop culture, as we were saying, there was a real sense actually of kicking against that and being very all-inclusive, looking towards diversity, looking towards breaking down those barriers that perhaps had existed. And I think we are experiencing exactly that now. And of course you get the two contradictions kick against one another, which we very much have now in the era of alt-right and snowflake, and this kind of notion of extreme polar views. A friend of mine was talking about this notion of the left pole at the moment, which basically defines the fact that as soon as you move away from an extreme left position, you're right wing. And we're kind of in that place again at the moment. And I think that is a very 1980s
I would agree. I would agree with you. And, the thing with the 1980s is also responsible for the 1980s genre films, they call it. All the kids are saying
can we
absolutely. Let's just talk about that a little bit. We'll get away from the political climate in the 1980s. Let's talk about the pop culture came on the 1980s.
Oh, I've actually, the last couple of nights, I've been watching some. This is not work that anyone would class seminal. This is not work that anyone would class as vital and important. But I've been watching some very questionable 80s slasher movies. I watched Return to Horror High last night on Blu-ray.
Oh my God, George Clooney!
When Return to Horror High is available on Blu-ray.
I have that as well. For George Clooney's first major role in a film. That's true.
Well, major, really?
Well, okay, that's exactly how they tout it, though. Is George Clooney's first major feature film was Return to Horror High, and he played, I do believe, a security guard or something like that in the film. It's been a long time since I watched it, and my God, it doesn't get any cheesier than that film right there. It was great. It still is.
But what was clever about it is it's so wonderfully, and this is now we're trying to sell it on Blu-ray. Of course, they're pushing this extremely hard. That it was the first postmodern horror movie because it's about a movie crew that goes to a school that are shooting a movie about a murder, a mass murderer, and a series of mass murders that occurred at that school. So they're shooting the movie about real life, and of course the movie starts reflecting
about the original Horror High, which was, well, let's just say that's a pretty forgettable film, the original. I think I saw it one time, and that was kind of cool. But then the Return to Horror High had more of that funny 1980s, make fun of ourselves, don't take ourselves too seriously kind of feel to it. And I still like the film. I would still throw it in once in a while.
There is a cozy wit to 80s horror. Yeah. We can pick lots of examples that would disprove it. We can look at the work of David Cronenberg and go, there is no comforting wit in the world of David Cronenberg.
No.
There is merely flesh and viscera and pus.
That is true, but then we cannot look past Friday the 13th came out in the 1980s.
I know, but don't you find Friday the 13th comforting?
I do. Now I do. In fact, I sat down. I happened to find the box set for next to nothing in the clearance bin in one of the big box stores. I'm like, oh my God, why are they having this gem sitting in here? So I bought it. Sat down one weekend, watched all the Friday the 13th films, and my God, you're right. It's just so, takes you right back to your youth when you're a kid. And you say to yourself, why the hell was I even afraid of this film when I was a kid? Today, it looks so damn cheesy, but still it takes you back to that time of innocence.
It does. You know, and the Nightmare on Elm Street movies are the same. But I mean, I'm not suggesting that they're lacking creativity. They're lacking, but I personally, I mean, when these movies first came out, same as you, to me they felt illicit. They felt, you know, because I was of an age where I was deemed slightly too young to be watching them, and so there was a kind of sense of the forbidden to them. There was now I would sit down and I'll watch most 80s slasher movies, The Burning, and I feel cozy as hell. I just think this is a feel good movie, and I'm usually sitting there thinking this is a feel good movie while someone's getting a machete between their eyes.
Exactly.
At which point I have to question myself quite deeply.
Come on, guy. It's not. Yeah, it's not on Golden Pond or terms of endearment here. Okay, we're talking about slasher films.
Kind of depressing compared to Friday the 13th. I love it, but you watch on Golden Pond and you think, oh God, this is really, this is the sense of mortality. This is thick, and whereas this is just some guy in a sleeping bag being pulped against a tree. I mean, this is comforting because I'm never going to be in a sleeping bag in the middle of the woods. I don't worry about that. That's never going to come.
What is the ultimate morality of Friday the 13th movies? Is it really as simple as it looks that sex equals death? Is that really what it is?
It's not.
This is the way that the maker of the film, Cunningham, told me. When we were talking about it years ago about him making this film, mainly it's a cautionary tale against sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Is what it is.
Yeah, but that's a very safe way of being able to explain why there are quite so many tits in your movie. That's true. I'm not wanting to put words in Mr. Cunningham's mouth, but there is there's a wonderful position of safety to be able to say, you'll note that actually these films are quite moralistic deep down.
Yes, it's a documentary.
But they also jiggle quite frequently, don't they, Sean?
Yes, the first time I ever...
it's all about counterintuitive. Go ahead, Joel.
That's the first movie I ever saw. A woman disrobe on film was during the 1980s, the slasher films. So you're right; they were just stuffed full of goodness. Those films.
Listen, we knew that. We get. It's okay. You're telling us sex is bad, and what we're hoping is actually you'll just kill some of the annoying people before you kill all the sexy ones, and then we appreciate we will be left with the slightly sad virgins.
And then exactly, and then that's also.
And I appreciate that's us.
Yeah, I sure hope that's us. I want to live.
Sex as she has. And that's why I'll probably survive as well. So it makes me feel secure, and that's good.
Yeah, but Jason, he killed everybody. He even killed the funny guy. Come on, he didn't care. If you're around, he'd kill you.
You've got to kill the funny guy.
And then
the funny guy is actually really annoying.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the 1980s is where the black stereotype came from. The black guy always dies first, and they took off on that. And they made a lot of movies, like I think, who was it that had that really prominent? Oh, the Scream films.
Scream movies.
They played on the 1980s genre film. They played on the stereotypes to really, he did it really, really well.
And what are the rules?
Exactly, yeah, the rules.
But then, in all fairness, I mentioned it earlier, The Burning, where, the last girl, and look, spoiler warning for The Burning, all right? Now, I mean, if you haven't seen it, then again, you're dead to me. But nonetheless, the last girl is not the last girl, It's the uncomfortable peeping Tom. It's the slimy, completely lacking in morality character, actually, who takes that last girl role on. So you think even at that point, 80s cinema was managing to be subversive in its own sweet little way. I'm not saying The Burning is the greatest film in the world. I think it's great fun and I adore it. But nonetheless, that is a very clever little central piece of The Burning. is it's not the perfect virgin that actually will smile sweetly but say no. It's the guy that peers at the girls in the showers. He's the one that lives.
Yeah.
You know, you think, how much of this are the movie makers actually looking towards its audience and going, you know how we're here to reassure you that you might be the ones who survive? In other words, we turn you into an attractive female who is a virgin. In this one, we actually are going to show you exactly who you are, but you will also survive the attentions of Cropsey. And it's it's not quite as cut and dried.
What's funny? Guy, what's
cat cry at me? I'm a writer. I own cats.
I heard that. I heard that cat scream. That's okay. But what's funny?
It just proves that I'm a writer.
What's funny to me is Friday the 13th. Now they have a game that has broken lots of records to the point where Guinness Book of World Records has it as the largest selling game as a download. Right now, it's like a $40 download. But if you look at the demographic, it's all people our age buying this thing. A lot of people of our, of the 40s and the late 30s, that kind of gamer is really
who do you
buying
play
that.
in the game? Do you play?
You play Jason. Yeah, you play Jason. You run around killing people.
You see, psychologically, that's kind of that's thin ice, isn't it? That's interesting territory.
That really is
the ability to slaughter teenagers in the woods.
Yes, we get to run around and kill them with anything we decide we want to kill them with.
So of course it's people our age that's doing it, because we're looking at teenagers going, Jesus, look at them all, they're having their parties and they're having such fun.
Them and their iPhones.
They haven't got mortgages yet.
They could die.
Machete. Give me my pitchfork.
Yeah, and so, the 1980s, too, was free of all the technology we have today, and that could be another reason why we look back at it so fondly, where we were forced to, interact one-on-one, to where now everything, of course, is afar. All of our interactions are mainly because of social media at arm's length. Mm-hmm. And so, that feel of community isn't quite like what it was in the 80s.
No, I mean, again, that's maybe your experience differed from mine. I mean, when I was a kid in the 80s, there wasn't the great sense of community that it looks like there was from media now either. To be honest, it was still pretty insular. We just didn't even have a forum.
But what I mean, Guy, by that is if you want to talk to somebody, there's only a couple ways to do it. Number one, go to their house, rap on their door. Number two, call them on the phone or send them a letter. Those were your only three options. There were really no other options.
Yeah, very true.
And so you had to go out of your own comfort zone and go up to that person and start speaking with them and strike up a conversation. Now, I've noticed, now this is the biggest complaint I've heard people of our age bracket. I'm 43 years old. I'm sure you're not much either older or younger than I am. That is their biggest complaint, is the lack of, from when they were kids, everybody went out and they played together and they did those things, and there was like a community there, at least in their minds. Maybe they're looking at it, the 1980s, with that same kind of tainted filter that Stranger Things was. Maybe they don't remember all the bad crap that happened in the 80s. They only remember the good stuff.
We never do. We always look back and because, we decided we have an element of discomfort in our lives, and we feel inherently that we didn't used to have that.
Yeah.
And so that, as you say, is where nostalgia comes in. We look at it and go, it was so much better when we had to talk face to face.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you, but getting back to the book, because we only got about 10 minutes left, and
I'm sorry, we must talk about it. My publicist is in tears already. I mean, she's just hearing, who cares about the burning? Says
Well, it's important.
They're talking about this film that no one that wants to buy this book will even see.
Well, let's talk about the book. Now we kind of talked about the 1980s, the feel, the pop culture, and the politics of the 80s. They did a wonderful job in Stranger Things and kind of canning all that into one condensed can and giving it to the audience in small doses as they went, just enough so the people that did live through it only saw some of those cues that could kind of go, yep, I get where they're going to that. Because the small things, unless you lived it, you don't know about it. And they did a lot of that as well. Did you catch a lot of that in your research? It was just these small little hints of 1980s life that they did keep intact.
Very much so. And I mean, our discussions of the kind of distilled gravy of the 80s that is what we're seeing in Stranger Things is certainly, apropos to the show. I mean, and it is very much of that perfect distillation of it. But I think what was so successfully done, because it's not just about the period, it is about that pop culture. So, it tastes of Stephen King, even though it's not entirely Stephen King. It tastes of John Carpenter. And it's like people talk about the music and they go, well, it's very John Carpenter. No, it isn't. You listen to the soundtrack to Strange Things, it's nothing like John Carpenter at all. It uses synths. That's the only similarity. It's actually very different, but it's nonetheless nudging away at it.
Yeah. I mean, there is some homages to Carpenter, King, Steven Spielberg. I mean, quite a few, don't get me wrong. I mean, the show is chock full of them. But you're right. It's nothing like John Carpenter music. It's John Carpenter-esque, I guess, at the very most. But it's
because it's being produced in similar circumstances.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because it's an electronic soundtrack, and it's synth based. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't actually have the flavour other than that warm sound of synths. But that's good. I mean, that's what lifts it. I mean, I think this is certainly something that I try to address with, because again, talking about conversations with the publisher about this book, there was and I understand this completely, but from the publisher, there's very much this sense of, we want you to catch all the references to other stuff.
Well, it must have been very hard. I mean,
Well, it's kind of hard, but it's also, to be honest, I kind of squint at this a little bit, in the sense that, I mean, you just when the show was coming out, and I didn't even know I was writing this book, I would see people talking about, well, this is obviously a reference to All of the States. This is obviously a reference to Poltergeist. And actually, there's two examples, they probably were. But there's so many elements of the show that you go, is that actually a reference, or is that just that now we're so desperate to sort of tick boxes because we want to prove that we saw the originals? I think sometimes you can see things that aren't there. And so I there are a lot of discussion of references, but I've even had this conversation with people after the book has come out, and people have said, did you get that moment in episode 4 where blah blah, because that was obviously a reference to Cronenberg's whatever. And I'm there going, was it, or is it just a writer telling a story, or a production telling a story that is naturally following the arc of where its story wants to go? I'm not sure how many of the references people think they spot are genuine knowing references. And so that was my difficulty actually with that section. I was thinking, I really don't want to sound like the sort of smart ass kind of guy that's going, well, that's definitely a reference to this, that's definitely, because to me that was almost reductive. But nonetheless, I mean, you guys have seen the book. There is a section on every episode that does discuss that. But I think it's almost too easy to just go that route. I wanted to try and discuss the show in a more, in less of a list form, I suppose, if that makes sense. This coming from a person that lists every song used in every episode. So, I'm inconsistent, but I wanted to kind of evoke the spirit of the show and discuss it on a level that was more convivial than analytical, if that makes sense.
Just really quickly, now it's really launched the career of David Harbour. I mean, really, the guy
and good. I'm pleased.
Yeah, because the guy was a character actor forever, like in Law and Order, had a few other things. He was really the diamond in the rough, because we already knew about Winona Ryder, and of course the rising stars that we meet are the kids, of course, and they will become, God willing, all the major stars. But David Harbour's been at this forever with very little accolade, and
he's our new Ron Perlman.
Yeah, he is. He's our new Hellboy, which will be interesting.
Who's our new Tom Waits?
Yeah, which will be interesting because, and of course, one other name in there that everybody knows from Full Metal Jacket, and everyone remembers that performance that was done by. What was his name?
Matthew Modine.
I just had it. I was looking at it and everything. My brain farted. But Matthew Modine plays extremely well in Stranger Things. I did not know that he would have those chops to play that sinister of a character.
Well, what's great about his performance in Stranger Things is it cares not one jot about owning the screen. By which I mean, because you can see lots of different styles of acting. You can see, an actor that walks onto the screen, and not necessarily consciously, but just their performance style is such that when they come on, the light is so bright you can't see anyone else. And then you get actors who, this is kind of like I was saying about Bobby Brown, that they come on and they kind of quell you with their stillness. It's not a loud performance. It's a very delicate, it's a very gentle performance. And yet is utterly, utterly compelling and right in the role. I think he's everything that Modine does in this show, playing effectively the main villain. I mean, he could have been chewing scenery if he wanted to. Yeah. The role was there for him to do that. He could have really been ticking all the boxes, but he actually gives a very delicate, a very understated and gentle performance. And thereby actually is kind of creepier, isn't he, really? Because he's grey. And the character should be grey. Yeah. It's a good performance.
No, I liked his performance. Matthew Modine has been one of my favorite actors ever since Full Metal Jacket. I've never seen a film with Matthew Modine I did not like. His acting is just really outstanding. And so to see him in here, and of course, arguably, if I could talk this afternoon, he's the largest star, aside from Winona Ryder, that was on board. And I was kind of surprised when I originally saw Stranger Things that he was on board for such a project.
But I mean, again, we're lucky. We're in the days now where we can tune in on Netflix or HBO, and we can watch, Matthew McConaughey and God, the wonderful one, True Detective I'm talking about, Woody Harrelson. Yeah. On a weekly TV show, and we think this is it. This is now perfect. I get to watch these two guys for 10 hours, and it's a good time to be alive for TV. A lot of people are very sniffy about television, thinking it's lowest common denominator stuff. It's there's a lot of TV in the world, so there's lots of crass stuff. There's lots of simple, cheap stuff. Yet we are at a time when could you call Netflix a network?
Well, they are.
A producer of content is able to say, "Here's 8 hours of drama for you." We've curated this wonderful selection of actors in order to present it to you, and it's what a great period.
Something Eric and we kind of talked about earlier on earlier episodes. In fact, we did a show recently, Future Television, where we talk about cutting the cord, getting rid of cable. But one thing that was brought up is that Netflix is quickly becoming, and I think, Eric, you brought this point up, they're becoming the new HBO in a lot of ways. Netflix is putting out more content now, original content, than most of your big production houses like HBO or Showtime.
Yeah, and it's. I think it's going to continue to grow that way, and it's the whole interesting thing we have at the moment with streaming. It's like we have just been blessed with the glory that is Twin Peaks: The Return, a show that should not have been on anyone's screen. You look at that TV show, and there's just so many executives the world over that would look at that and go, well, clearly I am not going to sign a single damn check that's going to get this
weird and so
put anywhere near a screen. I mean, I'm a huge Lynch fan. So, I adored every single second of that show. Yeah. I have no complaints. but to be in a time where, and the only reason that it was able to exist is because you have a network that's going, okay, well, we want to try experimenting with our streaming system. We want to try and, what can we find what hook can we hang this experiment on? And that's what we've got now with Star Trek Discovery, of course. We finally get a new Star Trek series. Why? Because they want to start trying to explore this platform.
Sure.
And it's a very useful thing.
Yeah. And one thing before we go, I got to tell everyone, you also did extensive work on the Hammer films, Hammer horror.
Hammer's my big subjects. Yeah, I adore.
Definitely go to GuyAdamsAuthor.com. check out all the stuff Guy's done. He's done a lot more than just this one book, Notes from the Upside Down, the unofficial guide to Stranger Things. But I'm a big fan of the Hammer films as well. I mean, they're the forerunner to what we have today. Without the Hammer films, without Hammer horror, we wouldn't have what we have today.
No, I mean, Hammer's just, I mean, what a studio. Just, again, but it's that thing of little money, but great actors and devoted personnel that would just create dreams for us in 90 minutes on seemingly out of thin air. You know, and I'm always drawn to. I've never been that interested in huge Hollywood projects, because if you've got that much money and you've got that much talent, if you can't blow me away, what are you doing? I'm much more fascinated by the people over there that have got. I mean, Jesus, you know, they've got 50 quid and one old actor that's nearly retired, and yet they're still managing to do something amazing.
Exactly. I hate to say this, we're at the end of another show, Eric. We have to thank Guy Adams for coming on. Definitely go out there, pick up Notes from the Upside Down, your unofficial guide to Stranger Things, and be sure to check out Stranger Things when it drops, of course, October 27th. But until then, this will kind of pacify your hunger for Stranger Things. Everything you want to know about Stranger Things, but we're afraid to ask. Until next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other, and tune into Stranger Things.